There's a lot of emotions for this deer just because I knew he was there. I knew the caliber of him, but it's a deer you dream about. People go to the Midwest and want to shoot a 150. To do it in New England, within 20 miles of my house in a piece of property I've hunted since I was 12 years old, it was pretty cool. And that deer stepped out. I was at full draw, perfectly broadside, and I almost released, and then he stepped right towards me.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 234. Henry Moncrief. Read the hunting pressure, smell like nothing. Support for the Big Buck Registry and the Deer Hunt Podcast comes from Black Ash Outdoor Products. Reduce your risk of tree stand suspension trauma with a Tree Stand Wingman, the Tree Stand Emergency Descender System. The Enforcer. Take control of your odor footprint with your personal ozone generator. The Rack Packer. Don't drag your deer out of the woods like a caveman. Never drag a deer again. No need to kill yourself dragging a deer when there's the Rack Packer. Use the promo code BIGBUCK, BIGBUCK, at checkout to earn free shipping at $23 value. Go to therackpacker.com. Covert Scouting Cameras. Remote cameras for hunting, wildlife, and security. The Horny Buck Seed Company. It's all about the freshest seed. Morse's Sporting Goods. A full line of sporting goods without the sales tax. Northwoods Common Sense. New England's finest whitetail deer lures, 100% fresh, pure, and undiluted. And Big Buck merch. For only $19.99, you can get a cool, high-quality Big Buck t-shirt and show support for this podcast by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/MERCH. The Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hello, this is Cuz Strickland with Mossy Oak, and you're about to listen to the podcast that I listened to 16 and a half hours nonstop. The Big Buck Registry is the best out there.
I'm Chrissy Titus. I'm co-host of RMES Female Television Show and NRA I Am Forever. Gear up for another amazing episode with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey guys, this is Robbie Kroger from Blood Origins. You're about to listen to my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry. Enjoy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, fellow predators. My name is Jay. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. For Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller and the entire staff here at the Big Buck Registry, welcome to this week's show. There are a couple things I'd like you to do for us if you could. If you would, please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. With your help, we're going to try and push this show up the iTunes charts. I know we have a lot of listeners out there, and I need you to take some action. I need you to leave a review and subscribe to the show. If you do subscribe, that'll give you access and notification each and every week that a new show is released. You can also access this show in its entirety on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. It's all right there for you to access on demand at your fingertips. Regarding the harness program, we have an ample supply of harnesses to give away from our volunteer donors. If you're in need of a full-body harness, please send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com. Hunting in multiple semi-local states can have a huge advantage to a deer hunter, especially if some of the states hold longer seasons. Henry Moncrief uses this to his advantage as he hunts Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine. These states, despite their reputation for holding smaller rack bucks compared to the Midwest, for example, lower deer densities, and difficult hunting terrain, Henry seems to have found a formula for hunting and killing the bigger, if not the biggest bucks in these woods, no matter which state he hunts. Henry changes his strategies based off of the weather patterns that the Northeast can deliver, loves to read hunting pressure, and says scent control to the point of smelling like nothing is the key to his success. We'll turn to our entire interview with Henry Moncrief in just one moment, but before we do, let's turn to Jim Keller for the Deer News.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Michigan DNR to begin deer migration study in western Upper Peninsula. This story is from the deerfriendly.com website. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources will soon begin capturing and collaring white-tailed deer in the western Upper Peninsula as part of a multi-year study to quantify movement patterns of deer, especially migration between winter and summer ranges. Completing the study will provide DNR wildlife managers with valuable information needed if chronic wasting disease is detected in the Upper Peninsula. Although CWD has not been documented in the Upper Peninsula, managers found infected deer in 2 Wisconsin captive cervid facilities within 30 miles of the Michigan border, said Terry Minzy, DNR UP Regional Wildlife Supervisor. While it is not possible to predict if or when we will find CWD in the UP, preparations seem prudent. In some instances, deer in the UP have been documented seasonally migrating more than 30 miles. There are no known health risks posed to humans by CWD, though as precautions, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention recommends animals infected with the disease not be eaten. A scientifically based understanding of deer movements, seasonal home ranges, migration, dispersal, transient and exploratory movements, and estimates of population abundance are critical for developing management recommendations in response to CWD. The information collected on deer movements would also extend the application of the new tools Michigan State University is developing for management of CWD in Lower Michigan. Other important benefits of the study include the use of camera grids to estimate deer abundance and composition that could provide valuable data for managing harvests and a better understanding of the spatial distribution of deer populations. Beginning this year, the initial work on the study will span 4 fiscal years with a total budget of $613,000. After the project is completed in the Western UP, DNR biologists would propose parallel projects in the Central and Eastern UP to develop a comprehensive strategy across the region. The DNR will work with researchers from Mississippi State University on this project. It has been a multi-year predator-prey study of the effects of winter and predators on white-tailed deer in the UP. For more information on deer in Michigan, visit the DNR's webpage at www.mi.gov/deer, or for more information on chronic wasting disease, visit www.mi.gov/CWD. Weather, other factors have Mississippi hunters happy. This story is from the Daily Times Leader website, was reported by Steve Rogers. A bountiful acorn crop and a colder than usual December have hunters and deer processors happy with a month still to go in deer season. And it comes at a time of year when many hunting families are carrying on a tradition that spans generations. While state wildlife officials say they won't have any firm numbers until after the end of this month, and again at the end of the season, preliminary harvest counts from around the state support the anecdotal evidence from area hunters and processors. Overall, the state experts estimate the state's deer population at about 1.75 million, with about 280,000 taken each year by hunters. Outdoorsmen attribute the better hunting to several factors, including an abundant supply of one of the deer's favorite food in the wild, changes in deer hunting rules, and cold weather. But perhaps the biggest difference from the previous 2 years is the weather. When it's cold, the deer have to move more to search for food. This December has been much colder than the last 2 Decembers, and January is expected to continue the trend. One more thing may be contributed to more bucks and more deer overall right now. According to the NDWFP, from mid-December to mid-January is prime breeding season in many parts of North Mississippi. That means more bucks are looking for more does. Experts say the feeding habits and improved land management and deer management are leading to the increased weights. Other factors also contribute to the ups and downs in horn sizes, but as more land owners manage their properties and what can be taken, the number of trophy mounts will only grow. Deer that attacked Troy, New York man test positive for rabies. This story is from the WRGB CBS Channel 6 News in Albany website. The Rensselaer County Health Department said Wednesday that a Troy man will undergo treatment as a precaution after a deer that attacked him Tuesday tested positive for rabies. The county said it wants anyone else who may have come in contact with this particular deer to call the county health department. Anthony Remillard said he was taking some couch cushions out to the trash on Tuesday when he turned around and saw a buck in his yard. He said he backed up but saw the deer approaching him. He reacted as quickly as he could and used the cushions up in front of his face for protection. He said he was grateful for a neighbor who saw what was happening and was able to open the gate so Remillard could get out. He is also glad he had those cushions in his hands. Even still, Remillard said he was hit in the face and needed stitches at the hospital. Michael Clark is the Region 4 Wildlife Manager for DEC. He said wild animals can be unpredictable and shouldn't be approached, but what happened here is not common. Captain Thomas Kafa said the DEC received a call Tuesday night about the attack. He said that an officer found the deer in a parking lot nearby. It was already dead. The deer was removed for the DEC for testing. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Well, thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Henry Moncrief. Henry Moncrief, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
How's it going, man?
Going well. You got snow on the ground, right? So you're in heaven.
I am in heaven. Other than I'm busy working, but I will be out in the woods this weekend and next week. So I am anxiously awaiting that time.
I've been interested to talk to you for a little while. As the world turns, as we can observe others on Facebook these days, I've been admiring your work. Let's put it that way.
Cool. Well, I'm a simple New Hampshire guy in a small town living on a dead-end dirt road, and it's what I do. I'm very passionate about it. I've had a lot of failures that's, I think, led to success. So
Perfect.
I've been very blessed and very fortunate to make the shots count when I need to. So
beautiful. And I think we needed to discuss some of those failures so we get a picture of how things come together for a hunter like yourself.
Definitely.
So let's tell us where you're living. You said you're living on a dead-end road, but where is dead-end road?
So I live in southwestern New Hampshire, approximately, 1,600 feet, just north of Keene, New Hampshire. So, I'm within striking distance, 25 minutes to Vermont, 45 minutes to Massachusetts, 2.5 hours to Connecticut. I can kind of strike anywhere in New England I want, depending if I want to make a quick trip to Maine, couple hours, all the way to, 6-7 hours north. So pretty centrally located for New England, and I take full advantage of it.
That's pretty cool. So you can get a tag in multiple states, and obviously, like the Maine is too far for you for the most part. Not that you couldn't get to Maine, but you can quickly jump over the border into Vermont. You can quickly jump over the border into Massachusetts, living in that southwest corner. So you've got an advantage where you could get multiple licenses for multiple tags in multiple places.
Exactly. And, turkey season, for example, I start out the 3rd or 4th week in April in Massachusetts, usually shoot 1 or 2 birds, jump to Vermont for May 1st, New Hampshire for May 3rd, and I'll wrap up in Maine, the last week of May, first week of June. And I am that crazy guy that leaves at midnight and goes and hunts Maine for a morning turkey hunting and drives home. So I have a couple buddies up there that, are real assassins that, don't do these sort of podcasts, and they've taught me a lot. And there's a reason why I wake up at midnight, because you just surround yourself with successful people, and it makes you successful. So
that's cool. That's a nice proximity to reach out to all those places when one season ends or one season opens before the other. It makes for a lot of fun. That's pretty neat.
Exactly, and you can get your misses out of the way early if you have to.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, it's like it's late season New Hampshire, Massachusetts. The season in New Hampshire's over, and now you're still capable of hunting Massachusetts.
Exactly. Right now, like, everyone's concentrating on Christmas, New Year's, and for $100 you can buy your Mass license, $5 for a turkey tag, $5 for muzzleloader, $5 for bear, and you're hunting a week earlier and 2 weeks later than New Hampshire seasons, and everyone if you break it down, you go to a bar, you can buy some drinks for $80 in one night, or you can hunt in Massachusetts for $120 for a whole year, and I choose the latter. And that's kind of, it's well worth it to me to have 2 extra buck tags, and I'm carrying around a smoke pole right now. So
you got my wheels spinning here. Like I'm thinking about this aspect. That's I have never hunted Massachusetts, and I'm not sure why I never do. Seems like it's much of a convenience, because I got to say I'm jonesing right now.
And that's, even if you went and bought your license tomorrow, you have until, December 31st, and you get 2 buck tags with a muzzleloader. Okay. So, you can fill those 2 buck tags, whether it's bow, shotgun, or muzzleloader, and you can put in for a doe tag in the summer.
Gotcha.
But that's really inexpensive to go and hunt out of state and get 2 buck tags. Yeah. You're not going to find it, cheaper.
It's short travel for me, as well. I'm not quite as convenient as you, but, I can be there in an hour.
Exactly.
Less. Okay. Very nice. So let's talk about your earliest recollection of hunting. My guess is, living where you live, where I actually am from. I'm from Winchester. I grew up there.
Okay. Yep. So
So I understand that neck of the woods. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where my dad taught me to hunt. I understand that whole area. The turkey hunting's phenomenal compared to the rest of the state as far as the number of birds where they kind of reseeded the population back in the 70s.
Exactly. That's where it all started, right here in Cheshire County.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
So tell us about your childhood. Who was your mentor? Who got you started in this thing?
So, I mean, like most people, my father is by far my mentor. He, ruled with an iron fist as I was growing up, but, had a very kind part to him. And he always encouraged me to do what I wanted. I didn't grow up as well off as some families. We ate good food and had a nice house and always had clothes. But, my dad hunted for food. There was no food plots and game cameras and, fancy rifle scopes and inline muzzleloaders. It was, open sight 30-30. Go out and shoot a doe if you can, put meat in the freezer. And, he wasn't an adamant hunter. He was that guy that would go out opening day and maybe go out on the weekends. And, so I don't have a rich hunting heritage in my background, unlike a lot of people, and I kind of started from square one with about 8 years of failure before I shot my first deer. So, it's probably a different story than a lot of people have been on here, but I think I can relate to a lot of people because I know the frustration of hunting New England, and I know what it's like to eat your tag, and I've did it for more years than I haven't. So the last, 8 years or so, I've really figured out the deer, and I've been blessed to have the opportunities I have. But, let's not make any mistakes. I have a lot to learn at 29 years old, and I had no experience, say when I was 18. So it's probably a little bit different than most people.
Right. So, but that's a quick learn. I mean, that's 11 years to do what you're doing. I mean, I believe me, I pay attention to stuff of who's killing what in New Hampshire, and I've seen quite a few nice bucks come through your Facebook page compared to many of the other hunters that eat a lot of tag soup. And granted, we all have eaten tag soup. Dusty was coined that term for me. Actually, he realized. He said, I forgot exactly how it went, but one day he said, "Boy, you're going to be eating some tag soup," and I fell off the chair laughing, but then it kind of sunk in. Like, wait a minute, you're right. I'm eating tag soup. I don't want to eat tag soup anymore.
Exactly. And, that's a whole other thing we can talk about in a bit, but it's also on, you have to figure out how you want to measure success. The first 2 years I decided I wasn't going to shoot a 1.5-year-old buck. I ate my tag, but was I successful in the fact that I passed deer and, had opportunities at good deer that I didn't, capitalize on, yes, 1 year, no, the next. I ate my tag and didn't see a buck the rest of the season when I passed a little basket 8. So, we can go into that later on, but it's all on how you want to measure success. That's kind of my take on it as well.
Okay.
So,
Dusty, did you have a comment on tag soup?
Yeah, I'd say by this point, Jay should be able to brew us up one excellent pot of tag soup.
You get a percolator going?
I filled a tag. I don't have any antlers to show for it, but I've got meat in the freezer.
Hey, perfect. Yeah. And that in itself in New England is a challenge. Like I said, I put a lot of time in. I don't take vacations in the summer. I live in the woods in the month of November. And, and a lot of people say they do, and a lot of people eat their tag. I just, when you get 3 to 4 weeks and you can play in the woods like I do, you're bound to get lucky once in a while.
All right, so I've got some questions developing in my head.
Okay.
All right, so early on, you said that you ate some tag soup, as we discussed. But
yes,
you also started passing up deer early on. It sounds like it's like something early in.
So I got lucky. I shot some does and some small bucks, and then I shot my first good buck in Maine.
Okay.
When I was actually a sophomore in college, 19 years old.
Okay.
Shot a nice main frame 8-pointer, beautiful deer, and that's when the sickness started. And I knew from the second I shot that deer that it changed me as a hunter, and it was that or nothing. Like, I wanted to shoot, didn't care score, didn't care weight. Like, I just wanted to chase big, mature deer. And that's when it all started. I was 19 years old. I'm 29 now. And that's, in the last 10 years, that's where I've gone to as a hunter. And, I mean, I probably 90% of the time, if I would have shot the first legal deer I saw, I wouldn't have shot a big deer. So
that was the defining moment.
The defining moment in my hunting career was when I went and picked up that rack, and it was just like, wow, this is addicting. And absolutely 100% 10 years ago, changed me as a person.
Okay.
November 18th, actually. I remember the day specifically.
So you have this defining moment in Maine. You kill a big deer, and you're like, okay, I'm done shooting small bucks. That in itself is, especially in New Hampshire, is easier said than done. And now you almost set yourself up for a much larger challenge, but with a much larger reward.
Exactly. And it all goes back to how do you measure success? And I just decided from that point, I was measuring my success in the whitetail woods on harvesting mature deer. Now, disclaimer for people listening that know me, I have shot a lot of does and small bucks out of state filling tags in zones where you can fill tags. Right. But in New Hampshire and in Maine, I have made it my point to shoot mature deer. And mostly I've narrowed it down to just New Hampshire because it seems to pay off just focusing on one area, a couple target deer, hunting smart, hunting right, and, I have a real good streak going, knock on wood.
Okay. Yeah, the streak may end someday, but it seems like you've gotten something figured out. And I want to dive deep into this. I really want to explore the last 10 years of how you figured this out. So you go to Maine, you killed the big deer. Then what are you bringing back to New Hampshire at that point? Yes, you made the decision, but you can't. It's not like you just okay. I'm going to go kill a big deer every year. What did you do? What did you decide? What changed?
So fast forward, I came home junior year, senior year of college, shot some nice deer. Not big deer, but, 2.5 to 3.5-year-old deer. I consider nice, respectable deer. Got home, graduated college, and I have a couple pieces of woods that are big, vast pieces of woods with no agriculture. It's hardwood ridges, it's swamps, it's pinch points. And honestly, I put a lot of miles on the ground. I sat a lot of lonely nights the first couple of years, and I've killed a lot, probably a majority of my deer within a 2 or 3 mile square area. Depending on the wind, I'm hunting certain places, and the deer travel through there. I don't care what kind of food is out there, acorns, beech nuts, browse, they're traveling through these pieces. I don't sit them unless the wind is right, and I don't go in there until a certain time in November that I go in there every year, and it's a travel corridor where they're checking these doe bedding areas. And, that's the big pieces of woods, and then, I know that was a tongueful, but I just have the areas and the travel corridors figured out, and it's the same block of woods, and I put my time in.
This theme that you just discussed, this spot, you figured out a spot, so it's not that big a spot, right? What would you say, 2 to 3 miles?
Well, within an area, 2 to 3 miles. I mean, this block of woods is probably 12 or 14 square miles.
Okay.
It's big, big woods. I mean, I wouldn't shoot something small out there because it's a half-day project sometimes to get them out, right, depending on where I am.
Right.
So
how did you find this spot? And the reason I'm curious about this because I'm finding this over and over is finding specifically the better hunters in New Hampshire. I'm finding that they're going to a specific spot. The ones that are killing bigger deer more or less routinely. I'm not saying they're killing them every year, but they more or less have figured out a spot. That spot seems to produce year in, year out. And I don't find that to be all that amazing because I think that's pretty much how it works. I think there are certain times of the year the bucks go to the certain area. But you got to find that spot.
It is, and I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. I think a lot of people don't get back to the basics. Like how many people take a scent-free shower and then they don't have a scent-free towel to dry off with? I mean, that simple step right there could be the difference between killing a big deer and not that day.
Okay.
It's just simple. Get back to your basic principles, starting with scent control, your entry and exit routes, the same stuff that I'm sure people have talked about. But if people actually stick to that stuff, and I would, be surprised how many people, are so meticulous about that. And put 110% into every aspect of scouting and hanging cameras and hanging stands and putting your time in and your scent control. I think a lot of people talk the talk, but when it comes to walking the walk on some of that stuff, I don't think if they sat back and had someone observe them, they were doing that stuff.
Okay.
That's just kind of my take from people I've observed. Like, oh yeah, I wear scent lock, but they wear it in their truck. They wear it when they fill up. They wear it on the weekend at their buddies, so... And I'm not saying that everyone does that, but there's definitely people that do that.
Okay. I want to get into that and dive deep into that too, like how you go about your routine. Let's go back to the spot. How did you're talking about a 15-mile area that you've quartered down to 2 miles or so.
Yep.
How did you first decide that, hey, this is the spot I'm going to that this is out of the 15 miles.
And
then narrow it down from there.
So, we have a lot of great tools. We have Google Earth. We have Bing Maps. We have aerial view, satellite view, topo view. And you can go through all this and pretty much basic. I learned in college and earlier in life how to read a topo map. Where do you want to walk? The easiest path, the path of least resistance. Basics. Okay, there's a couple mountains here. There's a ridge, there's a saddle. These are the places I start to narrow down, and obviously, how can I get into there, based on the wind. And that brings it into a whole nother aspect. Okay, I found this great spot. What wind do I need? But I used the topo map. I went in there, and it was boots on the ground in the spring, summer, fall, winter. I'm in the woods. There's hunting season, and to me, hunting season is January 1st through December 31st. I'm always in the woods learning about deer. I don't know everything about them. And they'll surprise you, but this time of year is great. You have snow on the ground, even, in New Hampshire right now. Get out there and follow tracks. I know some guys that flag trails right now, to go back and find in the summer.
Right.
And the deer really haven't down here yarded up or anything. They're still traveling. They're, bumping does from what my cameras are showing me still. So there's still some normal activity before they jump into their winter holding pattern. So, boots on the ground in the woods is the best way to learn about a deer, is to, learn about him in his habitat.
Okay. So you're saying that right after the deer season ends, that's when your scouting season begins. Is that kind of your
Absolutely.
routine? Okay.
Absolutely.
So what are you doing right now as far in New Hampshire?
Honestly, I have cameras out that I hung back in October. Okay. I'm going to grab them here in a few weeks. I'm concentrating hunting Massachusetts right now, but I do have cameras out. I have camera over food, certain food sources. There's a couple ridges here that are absolutely loaded with acorns still.
Okay.
And it's loaded with deer activity. And, I want to see what's around still and be like, okay, that's a deer that, next September 15th, I want to make a move on.
Okay.
So, I'm taking inventory. I have a pretty good idea where these deer are bedding. In a big block of woods, though, deer could bed anywhere. There's no, it's a 100-yard wide pinch point between a soybean field and open hardwoods. There's a mountain, there's a ridge, there's another mountain. So there's no normalcy, and I think a lot of people in New Hampshire, including myself, many a times get frustrated because there's no rhyme or reason, or so you think, to why those deer are there.
Right. Okay. You said something very unique there, and I want to key in on that. Is there's no rhyme or reason, or so it seems.
Exactly.
Okay.
So say, you're walking along the woods, you think you have the wind in your favor, and all of a sudden, deer blow downwind to you. You're like, what the heck? There's a reason why that deer was there for that wind, because that's his blind spot, and he smelled you. If you dig into what wind that was when you saw a deer there and write it down in a notebook real fast, and you start doing that, it starts to make sense if you sit back, and I'm a process-oriented person. If you sit back and look at the process, okay, a lot of people just say, oh man, my hunt's over. Never think about the wind or where it was or why they were there. But if you sit there and record it, you can learn from your mistake, and next time do a circle around that, or, whatever it may be. You can learn from that other than just, I screwed up my hunt. And I think,
okay.
A lot of people miss the boat on that.
All right. So when you narrowed it down to this 2-mile area, what were you looking for?
I was looking for big deer sign. You can hunt, a doe herd, and then you can hunt bucks. Yes, in the middle of November, you'll catch one baby dog and a doe. I've more times than not had a big buck come running in chasing a doe at 20 yards and give me a perfect shot. That doesn't happen to me very often. I have had it happen, but not often. You don't open hardwoods. I'm looking for cover breaks between hardwoods and softwoods. Those big deer tend to scent check from downwind that cover break. Whereas does might go out and feed in the open acorns, that buck doesn't need to expose himself. They're big for a reason, and I do really well on cover breaks between, a hemlock swamp and an oak ridge, 10 yards inside, downwind of it. One spot in particular, and that's my favorite spot. And the deer feel comfortable there.
Okay, so you found this comfortable spot. Now, I've noticed that you killed deer early season, you killed deer mid-season, you're hunting deer late season, depending on how many tags you have left.
Yep.
In New Hampshire. Once you find that spot, how are you setting up? What's your strategy for when the deer season arrives? Or maybe just what's your strategy as far as tree stand hunting, on the ground?
So
when do you transition?
So, I'm a mobile guy. Yes, I have hang-ons mostly for bow season. I use muzzleloader in New Hampshire. That's like I have a general idea where the deer are. I've done some scouting bow. I use muzzleloader to speed scout and sit and bump and move and scout for where I kind of want to concentrate on rifle season.
Okay.
I've been lucky a few times muzzleloader. More often than not, I use that as a scouting tool. I have a gun, so if I do see something, jump it up, or, I have a better opportunity than walking through the woods with a bow.
Okay.
And, I'm mobile. I'm not clung to this one spot that I'm talking about on a cover break. I'm going to hunt where the fresh deer sign is, but in this couple mile square area, the deer have everything they need, and I know somewhere in that piece of woods that I've narrowed down, they're not going to be out in the green field or up on top of the ledges. They're going to be down somewhere where there's water, where there's food, where they feel comfortable, where they feel safe. So that's how I narrow it down. I stay mobile. The deer, I've killed multiple deer out of the same stand, this is back-to-back-to-back years, but I've also moved and, killed them a mile away. And I had deer on the camera back where I have killed deer previously, but not during daylight. So it's all on the deer, how they feel comfortable. I mean, I put 120% into it. Every single second that I can be in the woods, I am in the woods if the wind is right. I'm studying them, making myself better. So,
okay. Early season, bow season. In New Hampshire specifically, it goes September 15th through generally the endish of October. Or, excuse me, I take that back. It goes the whole gamut.
December 15th.
December 15th.
Yeah, September.
But there's a transition where you can start using muzzleloader, then you can start
using
the
last Saturday in October is usually muzzleloader opener.
Right. So what are you doing for half the month of September and most of the month of October before you pick up the gun? Are you focused on bow hunting?
100%. I love, though that first week in New Hampshire season, you can catch a big deer on its summer feeding pattern. Absolutely. Everyone says when they shed velvet, they get a brain. That is true to some degree, but, I know a couple of guys, and successfully year after year early season, and you won't hear about them, you won't see pictures on Facebook, and I've been lucky enough to pick their brains because I used to be cursed early season, and obviously this year I made it all come together in a big way.
Right.
But, food sources. If you can get in there September 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, you have a really good chance. And that's where a game camera comes in handy on the edge of a field. And if you know where that deer's coming from, you have a really good chance to intercept him coming to that field or apple tree or lone oak tree. So I think the first, week and a half, 2 weeks, definitely, food for sure. And then October gets tough. Everyone knows it gets tough. It's still warm out. Rut activity hasn't picked up yet. A lot of the big deer are nocturnal. They're not moving a lot. But I always tell myself, you cannot kill them sitting in bed. And guys can convince themselves all they want by reading articles on Facebook that, it's the October lull, I'm not going to be in the woods. Well, guess what? Big deer do move at some point in daylight, and you will kill one if you're in the woods. If you're at home convincing yourself not to be in a stand, you're not going to kill one. So I have killed the deer October 8th. A really nice, respectable archery deer. So it's, you can psych yourself out and you can talk yourself out of stuff real easy. I think consistency and persistency are the two main things that's how you kill deer in New England. And a little bit of luck. You got to make the shot, but you got to have the deer come out.
So you're focused on food sources early on. And what food sources are you typically looking at? You mentioned apples, you mentioned fields.
Yeah, it all depends on the year. This year we had a banner acorn year. You couldn't go somewhere without finding acorns over here. But I like, being off of apples a little bit. If you have a good apple trees and you got some thick cover, I like being on that edge. If you have some some crop fields like some corn or alfalfa, that works. It's even better if you can have food plots. I know not everyone can do that, but a food plot doesn't need to be a 2 to 5 acre field. A big deer doesn't like that. If you have a small couple 100-yard long by 50-yard wide food plot, you can attract and hold big deer, even if you only own 3 to 5 acres.
Okay.
So,
gotcha. All right, so food source early on.
Yes.
The October lull, you talked about it a little bit. What are you keying off of in October as their patterns start to change a little bit?
And I'm moving further off of food as October goes on. Those deer are not coming out during daylight sometimes to those fields. There might be hunting pressure where you are depending on, where you're bow hunting. I mean, I know not so much over my way, but, you get over towards Manchester, Concord, out that way, there's more people, there's more hunters in the woods. The deer can sense that. So you got to move a little bit further back in the woods, and that's what I do. I stay mobile. I use a climber a lot. I don't really bow hunt from the ground too much, but I do use my climber probably 75% of the time.
Okay, so you're not necessarily locking yourself into one stand.
Not at all. Not at all. I think you can burn a stand out very easy.
Okay. And not only are you not using ladder stands, it doesn't sound like it, but you like that aspect of climber stands, being able to pop in and pop out wherever you feel is necessary. Exactly. That's your MO. Okay.
And it's almost like you're probing an area. Like, okay, I have this big deer on camera. Almost everyone uses trail cameras these days. Most people have multiple ones. You don't know exactly where he is, especially in a bigger piece of woods. It's like I said, it's, they could be anywhere, but they're there somewhere for a reason. If you can probe these areas tactfully, easy entrance, easy exit, you could get lucky. You sit the same stand over and over, deer are going to learn to pattern you like you're trying to pattern them, and they're going to avoid that area altogether. Gotcha. Especially a big deer.
Okay. All right. Transition out of October.
Yep.
Into November. Each month kind of represents a different type of hunting, a different behavior pattern, anywhere across the country.
Yep.
Seasons are changing, temperatures changing. November shows up, rut's starting to get real heavy. Maybe there's some snow on the ground towards the end. How do you hunt November?
November, and say for this year, I use muzzleloader. I have a real close friend. Him and I hunt religiously together. And every muzzleloader, we both hunt the same piece of woods. We don't crowd each other, but we're both hunting tactfully, whereas, okay, well, if I don't see one, you probably are going to see that deer this week. If we put our time in here between, say, I like that 15th of November to 25th. I like that 10-day period. That's my favorite time of the year to be in the woods.
Yep.
And I'm just going on whatever I have seen on cameras or deer sign, or what I think the does are doing. And I like to hunt close to where I know the does are feeding, but just off of them, because those really big deer, yes, you will get that one that will run across the field, but those big deer still, I think, like to be next to thick cover, and a lot of my rifle shots, I could kill them with a bow. I mean, I'm hunting stuff that a lot of guys won't, and that's what I attribute to a lot of my success. Those big deer can scent check from a few hundred yards away. They don't need to be on that doe's butt, and that's where I've seen a lot of my success.
Okay.
Is I don't need to be able to see a couple hundred yards.
Gotcha. All right. Transition into yet another month, December. Only 15 days left. There's a little bit of gun and the rest of bow.
Yep.
In New Hampshire. Now, it sounds like you start setting your sights on other states as well, or maybe you do that in the mix. I don't know. We didn't get into that.
I mean, I always hunt opening day in Massachusetts shotgun. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I'm in Massachusetts with a couple of good friends. We've done it forever. And I'm just down there as a sentimental thing,
okay.
And I do that. I'm thinking 2011, I shot a 189-pound 8-pointer on December 3rd, the last day of rifle season, and that's the latest with my gun I've ever gone. And, that was a really nice deer. And that deer came into a grunt call. I was sitting in an area where I knew there was a lot of bucks, and there was a lot of buck sign, and blew the grunt call, and he came running out, just like, people talk about. Okay. Couldn't believe it.
Just like on TV.
Just like on TV. Right. I don't know what kind of grunt call it was. I wasn't sponsored by anyone. It was a grunt call.
Right.
Couldn't even tell you.
Okay. And so December, there's usually some snow. Do you get into any tracking like a typical northeaster might?
So, in my previous employment, I was lucky enough to work for Remington Firearms, and I recently took a promotion and left, but I was able to pick the brain of probably one of the most well-known and most successful trackers in New England, Hal Blood.
Right.
So this whole tracking thing is new to me. Still hunting, I've never been a good still hunter. I'm a big guy, I'm goofy, and never been good at it. And this year and the last couple of years, I have decided that I just want to try something new, and I've been able to pick the brain of Hal and a lot of his colleagues and figure out the processes and what I need to do. This year, my New Hampshire rifle buck, I killed still hunting. First year officially still hunting. Walking out of my stand to check another spot, and he was there with a doe. got lucky, but I saw him before he saw me.
Right. Right.
And so tracking is a new aspect to me. It's something that I'm very much looking forward to, and next year going forward, you'll see a lot more of me probably going to northern Maine and wherever there's snow. So,
gotcha. And when do you start to do you hunt Massachusetts and Vermont? Not just like nostalgically with your buddies, but when do you actually focus on those states as well at some point between September and December?
So Vermont, I used to concentrate on bow because you could shoot a few does over there. But I also got to the point, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, where I had my hands in too many states. I wasn't putting 110% in, say, just New Hampshire. And, I struggled those years to shoot big deer. A couple years I didn't. By choice, I didn't shoot smaller deer, but and then I was just like, okay, take a step back. If I tag out in New Hampshire, on a buck I'm happy with, then I will put 110% in the Mass. But yes, I have cameras in Mass. I have cameras in Vermont. I have good friends who keep an eye on some deer in Maine for me. So as soon as New Hampshire is my main priority. I think that is the biggest challenge to me, is being able to kill deer in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. I think those are 3 really tough states.
Yeah.
And if you can kill a doe in any of those states, you're doing well.
Right.
And, that's a whole nother thing. But, you see Facebook and guys are giving guys crap for shooting spike horns. And it's like, that guy might have gone 8 years without shooting a deer. He doesn't have 3 weeks vacation or private land or, so that goes back to measuring success.
Right.
But, yes, so getting off topic, sorry.
No, it's totally cool. It's a podcast. We like tangents.
Yeah.
So back to this other piece that you have, and I got to ask this question because I'm sure somebody's going to wonder this. The property you're hunting, is it a posted piece, private type situation, or is it all?
No,
public?
anyone could hunt there. Anyone could hunt there.
Okay. All right.
And other people do hunt it, and there's some big groups of people that hunt it. I just use that to my advantage.
Okay. How do you use it to your advantage? Curious.
Well, they go in, you get your north, your northwest, your west wind, and that's a terrible wind for all these people go in from. And, I'm hunting the back or middle side of that piece, and these people don't go in far. But, and they might, a couple really nice deer were shot over the last few years out of there by a group of guys driving and stuff. But by the second week of rifle season, I have herds of deer in my area, and they're pressured. It's like someone you could put a watch to the second week of rifle season, and that area might not have had deer and muzzleloader, but there'll be deer there the second week of rifle, just because of the hunting pressure.
So and I hear this often, over and over too, like the good hunters, they pay attention not only to the deer, but they pay attention to the other hunters and where that pressure is coming from, so that you can get ahead of it.
Exactly. I do the same thing. I hate to say it, you just got to be one step ahead of, if you're hunting a big public land piece, like I hunt a lot of public land, you have to be one step ahead of that other group of hunters, or that other hunter. I'm not saying cut people off, I want to make that clear, like that's not how I operate. But if someone's hunting, a big group of people hunting half a mile away, I have no problem hunting the backside where I've hunted for years and been successful. So.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yep.
Well, let's bring Dusty into the conversation a little more here. He's been listening intently. I'd like to get into some of your gear check and like just strategies when it comes down to scent control. I know you mentioned that earlier, and it sounds like you go to an nth degree to cover some of this stuff where, I'm a scent control guy, except I wore my scent control shirt in the truck. And
exactly.
So let's get into some of that. Dusty, you want to come in and kind of go through gear checks and strategies on scent control?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to listen to you guys talk about hunting the New England states. That's something that I've only done a few times. I know it's definitely a challenge, and it's unique to hear you guys talk about the mountain hunting and how to hunt the New England states. It's definitely a different breed out there as far as hunting strategies and techniques and the way you go about things. Let's get a little bit about. We're going to start with like the early season scent control. How do you prep your clothes to get ready for the season?
I'm fortunate enough in my current employer. I am a representative sales manager for ScentLock. That's one of the companies, and so I have access to all that stuff. First thing is, guys can use totes, bags, whatever you want. Just have something scent-free to put your clothes in. That's what I do. I have ScentLock duffel bags. Do my scent-free wash. Everything's in the bag, goes in the back of the truck when I get to my spot. I've had my scent-free shower, wear a pair of gym shorts and a t-shirt, swap out of it, right down to the boxer briefs, get into my hunting gear, go in the woods. My boots are in one of those totes as well. And I think boots are a big problem for a lot of people. How many people you see wearing camouflage boots out ice fishing or whatever else? Out in the yard shoveling snow, salt, whatever. I mean, my hunting boots are my hunting boots.
Any particular soaps or anything that you wash the hunting gear in?
It's funny. A lot of guys, I've had good luck with dead downwind. Had great luck with it. I've used, the Hunter Specialties green soap. Just use something. I don't care what brand it is. I'm not the spokesperson for any of them. If you use the stuff correctly, it's on the market. It works. Dead downwind, I've had great success with. But, it's all personal preference. I mean, some people like blue, some people like red. But just use some sort of, scent-free deodorant, scent-free soap, scent-free clothing wash.
Gotcha. Definitely makes sense. Let's get into any particular brand of camouflage that you're wearing into the hunting woods.
I have some Mossy Oak, I have some Realtree. I've switched over a lot of stuff to Realtree. I really like the direction their pattern's going in. At ATA here in a few weeks, they're going to be launching something new. It's kind of cool. So, I'm really liking the Realtree stuff. But, again, I wear wool when I'm in the snow. It's warm when wet. I have some really nice Northeast Silent Predator stuff I just picked up from Big Woods Bucks and Hal. And, that stuff is worth its weight in gold. It's awesome this time of year. So
you said that's like a wool outfit then, or?
Yeah, wool coat, wool pants.
Gotcha.
Late season, it's warm. Wool really doesn't hold scent. So unless you sit there and cook bacon in front of it.
Right on. What kind of boots are you hunting in?
I wear rubber boots. When you get some snow or wet conditions, I also have a pair of hiking boots. The hiking boots, big rubber boots, great for early bow season. You're not walking far. When I'm hunting muzzleloader, I have a pair of Irish setters that are, broken into my foot years over years. Fits like a glove. You can walk quiet. You can walk fast. You're mobile. At the end of the day, you can take your boots off because your ankles aren't swollen. So, it's all on what type of hunting I'm doing. If I'm sitting, I'm going to wear a warmer pair of boots than if I'm hiking, or speed scouting, as I call it.
Gotcha. Let's get into backpack. Do you carry any backpack to the woods?
Less is more. I used to have a backpack. I have like a chest rig kind of thing now, with a clip around the waist, and I can fit, bow season, I can fit my rangefinder, my flashlight, my wind checker. Yes, I have a lighter in there just in case. I always have a lighter in the woods, even if I'm right behind my house, or if I'm, 100 yards from the truck, whatever. Just have a few go-to things. I always have a deer drag with me. I don't bring a knife usually with me. I'm superstitious. So, I'm one of those weirdos.
No, what'd you say? No knife?
I usually, it's weird. Don't ask me. People give me crap. I've had a knife in the woods before, and it's weird. It's like if I don't bring a knife, I'm more than likely going to kill a nice deer. I don't know what to say. So, I don't know what to tell you. It could be superstition. It could be coincidence. I don't know.
Right on.
There's always one in the truck, though. There's always one in the truck.
Right.
Let's get into your bow setup. What kind of bow are you using?
I have a Matthews Halon.
Any particular sights, arrows?
I use a Rage 2 blade. I got Carbon Express arrows. I just switched over to Bloodsport. And then I got a CBE Tech Hybrid Pro 3 on there. Nothing special. I use a thumb release. It's all, personal preference. I don't think, Easton is just as good of an arrow. Bloodsport's good. Carbon Express is good. It's all personal preference. People give me crap for using Rage, and I've used them for years and never had an issue, never had a big deer or a small deer or anything in between go more than 40, 50 yards.
How many pounds draw you shooting?
70.
Gotcha. Well, we got into your clothing. We got into your bow. Let's get into the tree stand setups. When you say you do a lot of climber hunting, what kind of climber are you using?
I have a couple lone wolves. You're going to laugh, my most comfortable stand, I love my bigger Summit. I'm a big guy. I can sit in that Summit all day if I'm rifle hunting, if I'm bow hunting. For me, it's not a big deal to carry a few extra pounds if I'm going to be comfortable, because that, when I'm in the stand, is when I care about not moving. And if I'm in a tiny little lone wolf, sit and climb or hand climb, I am not comfortable. I have used them. They have their place. I'd rather have my big Summit.
It makes sense. Bigger guy. I'm a big guy. I like the comfort of what fits me and what works best for my size, for sure, no doubt about it.
Exactly. And
Uh,
I've wasted a lot of money. I've bought everything out there, and you don't know until you try it. I don't. Other people's reviews can help you, but until you use it yourself, that's what I tell everyone. What works for me might not work for you. I'm very nonchalant. I don't push any products to anybody, whether it's a tree stand or a bow or whatever.
Right on, for sure. Any particular scent cover spray you would use?
I like to smell like nothing. I am not a believer in earth or, you get, and a lot of people disagree, I like to smell like nothing. If I smell like nothing, they don't know I'm there. If I smell like fake pine or fake dirt, that deer, those big deer, I've seen them, I've sprayed a mock scrape before and seen a nice deer on camera come in, sniff it, and peace out. Never come back. So, I like to smell like nothing. That's my piece of advice to people.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes complete sense. Jay, that pretty much covers all the gear.
All the questions you got? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're kind of piecing this together as a listener, they're saying, all right, Henry is in the woods 365 days a year or close to it.
Yeah.
He's hunting multiple states. He is doing his homework. He is being successful. You got to ask the question, though, how do you do it? What job allows you to be able to get out in the woods a lot?
So, I've been lucky. Like I said, I worked for Remington Firearms as the district sales manager for 4.5 years. I recently left for a promotion. I work for Outtech, which is a manufacturer's representative for, Scent Lock, Plano, Wild Game Innovations, Evolved Harvest. So I work from home. I set my own schedule. I am gone all of January. When I'm gone, like last week, I drove 1,800 miles for work. When I'm gone, I'm gone. When I'm home. I cover Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island, New York. So I'm in these states. I'm in a hotel room. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and go hunting. Gun shops or my customers aren't into work till 9 or 10. I can, in theory, hunt whatever state I wake up in for work, whereas some people wake up, go to the same job every day in the same state. I'm away from my family. I take full advantage of it, and I'm in the woods, regardless of the state I'm in. So, that's not for everybody. I kind of have a niche job. I know that. I know that's not possible for everybody. I've been very fortunate and blessed in my life to meet people and have the opportunities I do. I don't say that everyone can do it because I know there's only so many jobs like mine out there.
Right.
So
that affords you the flexibility that you need to hunt the way you do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. Very cool. All right. So, Henry, we had discussed a little bit beforehand. I asked you to think of a memorable deer story that you could share with us in detail, and we could really experience it with you, kind of recreate the moment. I'm sure you've had plenty over the years.
I'm going to go with September 15th this year just because I still sit back and I'm looking at a picture right now in my office, and I'm smiling ear to ear.
Okay. All right.
So,
and that's the one we should go with. Yep.
Yeah, so this started, a few years ago, and I had this deer show up, and I'm like, well, that's a nice 110-inch deer. Like, I would shoot that in New Hampshire in a heartbeat. Never saw him, I believe that year I ate my 3 years ago. No, I shot one that year, but it wasn't this deer. It was a different deer. The next year he pops up, bigger deer, and I'm like, man, this deer only shows up like early season and late season. He is gone October, November, or he's there. He's just not there for me to see. And, fast forward to this summer, I started getting pictures of this velvet deer that I knew was going to be a giant in June and July. And then he blew up in July. And I'm like, this is, a deer of a lifetime in New Hampshire with a gun. Like, I don't care if it happens September 15th. I had a conversation September 15th in the morning with a friend, Mike Susi and Keene. I was grabbing some parts for my tractor. And I'm like, tonight's the night. It's going to happen. I'm going to shoot a mid-150s to 160 deer with my bow. He's like, are you serious? I said, dude, it's too perfect weather. It's going to happen. And, a lot had led up to this. I was baiting bears. I hadn't put a lot of time into scouting, and I checked the camera September 15th midday, and that deer was there the night before in legal shooting light. He was there 3 nights previous to that, 4 nights previous to that, and I'm like, I have a good shot. And there's a lot of emotions for this deer just because I knew he was there. I knew the caliber of him, but it's a deer you dream about. People go to the Midwest and want to shoot a 150. To do it in New England, Within 20 miles of my house in a piece of property I've hunted since I was 12 years old. It was pretty cool. And that deer stepped out. I was at full draw for like a minute and a half. He was just very cautious. And I almost shot him 3 different times. And he stepped out perfectly broadside. And I almost released, and then he stepped right towards me. And I shot him quartering on, which a lot of people wouldn't do. Long story short, I blew right through his heart. He crashed into the base of my tree and flopped 5 yards behind me and is dead.
No kidding. Wow.
With 25 minutes left of legal shooting light, first thing I did, got down, took a picture of me with the deer, sent it to the local warden, sent it to another warden, just because I know what happens when you shoot a deer of that caliber, what the rumor mill is, what happens, and there was not a single person that was going to discredit me for it. And I read more and more, and actually, someone had told me, hey, if you shoot that deer, take a picture and send it to the warden right away. And that's what I did. They texted me right back, said, dude, that's awesome. We had talked about getting Northwoods Law there to kind of film the recovery, even though it was 5 yards from my tree. But, so that part of it was good. And it didn't set in until I was going to the taxidermist. And I'm like, he's dead. Like, what do I do now? Like, the chapter's closed. And,
right.
I'm happy he's dead. Trust me. I'm happy I harvested that deer. But it was definitely like mutual respect for that deer. He was the king of the mountain, and that's the most memorable to me, probably because I did it in my, close to home with a bow. It's probably a record book deer, but the world will never know. He's not getting scored. So, it's cool, man. I still think about it, and it'll be tough to beat no matter where I go, gun or bow.
Right.
So, That's probably the most memorable. My boy's 2 years old. He was there holding on to the antlers. I got pictures of me and him. So, the whole thing, it's just pictures that him and I will look back on, when he's hunting, and, it'll be cool.
Right.
So,
Gotcha.
That's probably my most memorable hunt, just because my boy was there, too, for the recovery and stuff, so.
Great story. I got to ask, though, why not score?
I've never been that guy that really cares about score, or even cares about body weight. It's a mature deer. I love it, and I think that a lot of people get so wrapped up in the score that they don't even, they're so busy chasing records and so busy, worrying about stats. They kind of get away from the principle of what I see as hunting, and that's just being out there having fun, the chase, and being successful. Obviously, I want to be successful in every aspect of my life, but I don't measure success hunting by the, inches of antler I shoot or how many pounds a deer weighs.
Okay.
It's kind of just how I am. I've rough scored him. I've had buddies score him. My taxidermist scored him, but he's not going to go in any book. It's not a big deal to me.
Okay. If I asked you about your philosophy of hunting, what does it mean to you? Like, what should hunting mean to others? What does it mean to you? What do you say to that?
Hunting to me, it's kind of, and I don't want to sound all like, philosophical here, but
it's a philosophical question, so you can.
I know. So I'll try and give you a philosophical answer. But when I am out in the woods, I am just on cloud nine. It's kind of where I disconnect from my busy. I'm on the cell phone. I'm on my laptop. You kind of sit back. I'm on the road. I did 1,900 miles last week. That week's gone. I never get that week back. So when I'm in the woods, it's kind of my time. It's, I can disconnect. I can recharge the batteries. It's fresh air. It's, you're in the woods. And it's just, it's where I kind of find myself and kind of find myself at peace, not to sound too corny, but I absolutely love the chase. I love chasing big deer. I love being in the woods. It's just, it's just who I am. It's not just something I do.
Gotcha. It's a good answer. All right, Dusty, you want to get into the 10 rapid fire questions?
Absolutely.
They may not be so rapid, but we haven't prepared you for these.
Okay. Well, I wasn't prepared for any of it, so.
You'll
ready?
do fine.
All right,
I think so.
question number 1. What's your best hunting tip?
My best hunting tip? Be persistent. I think a lot of people give up and get discouraged. Keep after it.
Very good. Question number 2. One thing that you cannot go to the woods without. Something that maybe brings you luck, or that one thing that you just can't hunt without.
Well, if you ask some of my buddies, I have a golden horseshoe. But
you're one of those guys.
Well, one thing I can't go without is my weapon, whatever way I'm using. I need that. But if you're talking gear, then I don't know. Let me think about that one. Probably my cell phone, because I get bored sometimes. I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I'm a normal human, man.
We'll take
So,
cell phones as an answer. Question number
Yeah.
3. What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
My biggest pet peeve is, people that instead of being happy for fellow hunters, you can go on the New Hampshire deer page, be happy for other hunters. If a guy's kid shoots a 60-pounder, guess what? We were all kids once. I'm sure you've shot skippers. I've shot little deer. I'll be the first one to admit it. And, we need to stick together as hunters. So I think hunters turning on each other is probably my biggest pet peeve. My major in college is conservation law enforcement, and biology. And, people just need to stick together when it comes to the hunting community. We're under a microscope. So my biggest pet peeve is hunters attacking other hunters.
Gotcha. How old are you today?
How old? 29.
29. What would the 29-year-old tell the 20-year-old, knowing what you know today?
Slow down, Henry. Slow down. I've been in fast forward since I probably was 5 years old. And I'm 29 now, and I look back on my 20s, I'm like, man, you got to slow it down. Enjoy life a little. Some people would call me high-strung, and, I put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed, and I need to learn to go with the flow a little better. That's what I would have told my 20-year-old self.
Yeah. Question number 5. You meet a stranger at a convention, in the lobby or in the elevator. They ask what you do for a living. What do you say?
I say I'm in the outdoor industry. I'm fortunate enough to work alongside some of the best and most bright people, I think, in the outdoor community. And I get to help look and test and feel new products before they hit the market, and kind of voice my opinion on what I think hunters want. I think I have one of the coolest jobs in the world.
Very good. Question number 6. What'd you have for breakfast this morning, Henry?
5 eggs, some deep venison sausage.
Very good. Question number 7. You get your own billboard, a blank canvas. What would it say?
My own canvas? I would probably just have a picture of, it would say, do 110%, because, I'm one of those people where, people can exist in life and then people can live. And I'm one of those guys that no matter what it is, my career, my family, my friends, it's always I give 110%, and I don't expect anything back. If you go through this life giving 110% to people and not having expectations, you won't be disappointed. Because, at the end of the day, I can go to bed, go to sleep at night, I've provided for my family, I've done this, I've done everything in my power to make my life better, my family's life better, my friends' life better, and the people around me better. And that's kind of how I've always lived my life.
Awesome. Question number 8. I say the word successful. Who's the first person that pops in your mind and why?
There's a lot of people in my life that I've surrounded myself that are successful. I'll go back to, my father. He's a veteran. He's disabled. He's come over, conquered a lot of stuff in his life. And I hope that I can be half the father to my son that he was to me, for the guidance and the support. And, that's how I measure success. He's almost 80 years old, and I don't think he regrets a day. So.
Very good. Question number 9. What's a day in your life look like?
Well, like this morning, get up at 4 o'clock, do office work, go down to the sugar house, bottle some maple syrup because everyone's ordering syrup for the holidays, jump on the road, visit a few dealers, set some appointments for ATA show, wrap up around 4:30 tonight, pick up my kid from daycare, get home, bottle some more syrup, get a call from Hal Blood, talk about the deer he shot today, answer some work emails real fast, and jump on a call with you guys.
Very cool. Question number 10. What's a hunting day in your life look like?
Monday through Sunday, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. we'll say. No, a hunting day, I am primed, ready to go. Don't even need coffee. It's, I won't call it kill mode, but I'm in hunt mode. I get excited. I get in the zone. Mostly everything is in the truck or wherever I'm going the night before. I have a game plan. I get to a spot. I've also driven to a spot and the wind's completely wrong and I end up going someplace else even if I'm a little bit late. But, typical morning hunting, I'm up, turkey season, opening day. I might leave my house 11 o'clock at night, get out in the field and sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning for 4 hours. So, I'm that guy. So it all depends on what I'm hunting, where I'm hunting, but I left the house at 10 p.m. and been in northern Maine for daylight to, track on snow.
Wow, craziness.
Yeah.
Well, that completes the 10 rapid-fire questions.
Excellent. Well done, Henry. You did a nice job there.
Cool.
All right, so Henry, if we have not covered enough information here today and people who are listening to this have more questions, where can we find you on social media? Can we reach out to you, and if so, how?
100%. You can give people, you could give them my phone number, Facebook. I like seeing people shoot deer. I am all about that. Anyone that knows me knows that. No, I'm probably not going to bring you to the spot. I've been looking at a big buck all year, but I will help you in your area. And I've done this. I've walked with buddies and they're like, "What do you think, man?" I'm like, "Well, this is what I would do. It's not the right way. It's not the wrong way, but this is what I would do." I've helped out a lot of buddies that way, and I have one friend in particular that's really helped me out over the years, and he's probably one of the reasons why I am such a successful hunter. A few years older than me, but the kid is just an assassin. And I have a couple buddies like that make me look like a rookie, which isn't hard. But, and they're those nonchalant guys you never even know until you walk in their house and you're like, oh my God, these all came from New Hampshire. So, but yeah, any way I can help, tell people to reach out to me on Facebook. I don't even know. I think just Henry Moncrief, you search me. I am no expert, but I'll tell people whatever I know.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that, Henry. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to talk to you and kind of pick your brain. And it's nice to talk to somebody from the Northeast that understands my pain, so I get it.
Yeah, and it's just a different animal, and I know you can't explain it. Well, I went out to Nebraska once, and I had a field day out there. It wasn't like, oh man, I went 4 or 5 days without seeing a deer. It was like, man, I see 4 or 5 deer an hour out here during the morning and evening. This is cool. Right. But it can spoil you real quick. You just got to know where you're at, and that's another goes back to the measuring the success. Right. If I'm in New Hampshire, I don't expect to see a deer every day or every 2 days. I've gone a week without seeing a deer, but then I saw the right deer when it counted. Right. So,
gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Henry. I appreciate you coming on the show. And good luck for the rest of the season. I know you're still hammering down, and good luck with everything out tech and ATA shows and all that kind of stuff.
No, definitely, man. It was a pleasure. I'm honored to that you guys even thought of me. I'm just another New Hampshire guy, so I really appreciate the time.
Well, thank you to Henry Moncrief for bringing us through how he strategizes for hunting the Northeast, looks for that pressure so that he can hunt where those hunters aren't. We've been hearing that theory over and over as we've talked to hundreds of different hunters around the country, and finding that spot where those bucks like to go. It seems like he's also keying on that. We've heard that multiple times too. We wish Henry the most success in the woods, and it sounds like he has plenty of states to hunt. Really appreciate him sitting down to share his strategies and techniques that he uses to hunt 4 different states close to where he lives. Well, Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, Jay, I've got a tip of the week this week.
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
It's a mental game. We're getting in the late season. A lot of guys are getting discouraged, and sometimes the rifle or shotgun season rolls through and it kind of messes everything up, and it'll eventually settle down and things will get back to where they were before. But now it's a mental game. If you can keep your mindset that you're going to have success and the woods is going to settle down and things are going to come back to normal, you got to be able to override that mental thought that I need to move or get out of that woods, or the deer's left, or the deer's not here. They go through changes no different than us, and it's a mental game for them also. Just think if you had a slug slung at you in daylight hours from a hunter, you're going to change your ways too if you're getting shot at. But hang in there. Don't go and mess everything up, and you make a few minor adjustments, but it's going to happen. You just got to stick it out.
Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you, or you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice, let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and Blueberry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.